Welcome back to the Leadership Blueprint Growth Podcast. Today's conversation is with Samuel H. Kim, founding president of the Center for Asian Leadership and a leading voice on adaptive leadership, system change, and decision-making at scale. Samuel works with senior leaders across government, business, and global institutions to help organizations navigate complexity, avoid stagnation, and lead through uncertainty. His work spans more than 30 countries and includes advising governments, multinational corporations, and international organizations. He's also the author of The Art of Adaptive Leadership, Why Do Organizations Decay or Get Stuck, and a fellow of Harvard University's Asia Center. In this episode, we'll explore how leaders stake when systems are under pressure, why organizations get stuck even with smart people at the top, and what it actually takes to lead adaptively in a rapid changing world. I'm excited to dive in. Everyone, please welcome Samuel Kim. Sam, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much, Jordan, for having me. It's really an honor. Yep.
Absolutely. The first question we have for you, my friend, is how would you describe the work you do in leadership and executive development for someone hearing about it for the first time?
The work that I do is really about how do we manage the resistance? How do we adapt? Adaptation is going to be extremely important because the circumstances are changing, both inside the organization, outside the organization. It's very important that we need to be mindful of what's going on. Because without really paying attention, then you don't know how to adapt. And so therefore, leadership is really about helping people to adapt. And that will ultimately help us to thrive. And by doing so, we are able to continuously make a meaningful impact. So there are two things. One is that you have to be mindful of what's going on, and so that you have an idea of what you need to do. Number two is addressing, maybe there's some complacency side of you. There may be some, mild or hard resistance within you that you have to really, know how to address that. Because maybe you might be thinking that you need to change or you need to adapt, but in real, that thinking may not translate into action. It's really important that one thing is being mindful of what's going on and what we need to adopt. Number two, addressing, these elements of resistance. Right? And that's how I see, what the leadership work is. And that's, the work that I do, both, individually, but also with an organization, corporate leaders or government leaders, because, a change is not an option. It's a must that you need to embrace.
100%. No, thank you for that answer. I'm really excited to dive into your methods, to your frameworks. I love how you said complacency is one of the elements that you guys have to look for and almost check yourself. It's interesting because I'm also a firm believer, Sam, that complacency or comfortability is the killer to all growth, right? If you want to not grow, just be comfortable and nothing's going to change or nothing's going to improve. But in all reality, I feel like nothing really stays the same. Like you're either growing or you're decaying. So I can't wait to dive into that. I kind of want to go back to your college days, maybe your high school days. In high school or early college, did you know you wanted to pursue executive leadership or leadership development, or did something happen to you where you said to yourself, okay, this is exactly where I need to go? Or was it kind of like a gradual process?
I think it's a very important question. Certainly, the experiences that I had, yes, it has significantly influenced the work that I'm doing at the moment. But I want to kind of go back earlier days than the college times. I had a rare experience of living in some of the very challenging places in the world. I think where I come from, Korea. Korea used to be one of the poorest countries back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. There are a lot of challenges like, colonialism. Then you have the Korean War, a lot of political instabilities. And we went through a lot of challenges. So then when I was 10, I moved to a country called the Philippines, and I had an experience of living in Myanmar, Nepal, and whatnot. When I was there, I have been always thinking about how come some of the countries are, affluent, they're doing well. How come some of the countries, we're all the same people, but how come some of the countries are not able to do that, right? So I've been always kind of thinking about this, where are we now, right? And how do you describe what you are now and what the future that you see coming? So it's either that you are growing, and it can be a quantitative, your numbers are growing, higher income, whatnot. But, also it can be qualitative. Like, are you happier or are you feeling safer? Do you see more prosperity coming in the way, right? So it's really important to kind of understand that one path is growth, but another one is what I call stuckness, right? You're stuck somehow, right? You're not like growing, you're not declining, but you're just somehow stuck. It can be better, but somehow you are in that state of mediocrity. Another one is a state of decline, right? I've been asking a lot of questions as I've been traveling a lot. I mean, to date, I have traveled to more than 80 countries, and that's the question I ask. Like, what determines where you are today, and what's coming in the future? And so, are you on a growth path? Are you on a stuck path? Or are you on a decline path? And then the question is, then what's influencing that, or what's defining it? What's determining that? Definitely, what you are today, or what you will be in the days coming. It's not. There's got to be a reason. And so, I've been really interested since I was young. I mean, trying to understand what's really behind it. And so I've been looking at the mindset part of things. I've been thinking about the cultural part of things, the thought process. So seeing that firsthand, growing up, right? Growing up, seeing that, I felt that the leadership work is extremely, extremely important. Now, I didn't go into leadership right away because I really want to have a, uh, you know, direct experience. So I was at the United Nations trying to understand what's the leadership there, right? How are different leaders, 200 over countries, leaders that are coming to UN, how are they exercising leadership? What's a good leadership? What's a bad leadership? Then I had a chance to run a nonprofit, run a startup, serve in the army in Korea, and work in the investment bank, and now doing this. But I've met a lot of people. I've worked for and with many organizations, and I've been always observing what's a good leadership, what's a bad leadership. And ultimately, leadership is, again, as I mentioned to you, is really helping people, right? People to be mindful of what's going on and what are the things that you should know in order for you to know what you need to do, right? To stay relevant. And then after that, ultimately, is that really helping you to thrive and ultimately to make a meaningful impact in your community? And so that's the experience that I had growing up in my youth days. Then in my professional days, I've worked for different organizations, worked with different organizations, with different leaders. And that has ultimately led me to founding this organization. And now this is my 11th year doing this work.
Thank you. You brought up the word mindful and mindfulness a couple times. Just out of curiosity, do you practice meditation daily or frequently?
I think that's really important. I mean, mindfulness, I want to, I can use the word reflection, and it is very important that, we need to set a time, right? I mean, it can be for some people walking, maybe during the time of meeting, you're feeling at peace, listening to people, sharing, just being, the fact that you're being heard. I mean, there are different forms of reflections or mindfulness. But I also, when I'm driving alone or when I'm sitting down, right? I just need to detach myself from the routines of life and just really have that time to really think about the choices, the decisions I've made, and about the future, right? So I think that the future, the reflection has to be reflecting on the present about the past, but also about the future. And I think that has really enhanced the quality of your decision. And so therefore, yes, sometimes I do it in a very disciplined way, but sometimes like it can be a random thing. And I can also call that, pray. Praying is going to be also important. And so many different forms, shapes, but I think it's really, really critical. Whether you are a leader in terms of position or not, I think that is really, really important a part of exercise of leadership. Yeah.
I completely agree. I personally meditate every day for at least 15 minutes. If I have enough time, I'll do it for 30, 60
Yes.
minutes. What I have found is us humans are always thinking the exact same thing, and it's typically I statements, and we have our habitual thought patterns, right? And for me, during meditation, it allows me to quiet those thoughts, and I feel
Yes.
like wisdom comes in silence. It's almost
Yes.
every single time I have a new idea or a new reflection point comes through meditation. And for anyone out there listening, if you are hesitant or you're somewhat curious about meditation, it's changed my life. I'm sure Sam would agree. Just go ahead and do yourself a favor and give it a try.
I mean, I like how you put it. It's the wisdom comes in the midst of that silence. I really like that how you put it. Yeah. Thank you, Jordan.
I appreciate that. Now, moving on, I am really curious to dive into kind of the frameworks and the methods that you have. So, imagine I'm a brand new client. I'm interested in working with you. What is essentially the step-by-step process to completely just turn my organization around or to really put gasoline on the fire and scale this thing up?
That's really an important question. And the way that I want to put this is you need to have, first of all, I think you need to have a prelude, right? I don't go and engage in the work right away. I think you need to have, first of all, right chemistry. You really need to have that candor as well, right? It's really important that you need to make your client feeling safe, that they're really able to share what I really need to know, right? Without, I use the word diagnosis, and without the proper diagnosis in place, whatever that you bring, there's a high chance that it may not work. It may work, but that may not be the ultimate solution. So if you really want to solve a challenge, I think rushing is not going to help. I think you really need that some time to build that trust, that chemistry. And I really do invest a lot of time in, that trust and making our clients feeling safe to talk. Because, maybe the leader of the organization really wants the change, but maybe people, next to him, below him, may be feeling very anxious because, they don't really know what this change will bring, right? And so therefore, it's really important that, it's not only just the leader that you're having this good chemistry, that trust, but you gotta you be doing this with all the people in the organization that you are working with, like the client organization. And so therefore, I say that, you really need to spend some time to build a trust with them and really having the chance to hear them out. And you got to really engage in a proper, thorough diagnosis. And with that, diagnosis basically means that you're collecting data, right? You're collecting data. Maybe there's some technical data, but there are also data that's hidden or hidden behind the words, right? There's a meaning beneath the word that people, are afraid to talk about. I mean, I think it's really important that need to know how to capture that. And all these things put together, what are the fears of the people? What are their anxiety? What are they afraid of? And what are they excited about? What are some of the constraints that they have? You got to really ask these questions. And the more trust that you have, the people are going to open up more. And eventually, you're going to be having all the important data with you. And then that will, really enhance the chances of you providing the right solution to that. Solution is one thing, but then how do you implement that? Usually my work involves generating solutions. And again, I told you that you need to have a proper diagnosis. But implementation is whole another leadership work. We teach leadership. We also, there's a great deal of leadership involved. What do people need to know, right? Maybe again, maybe people may be complacent of what they really need to know, what they really must know in order to have this awareness that this is what they need to do, but they're just dormant. So implementation is going to be extremely, extremely important. And implementation will always accompany some forms of resistance. And so therefore, if you have a trust well built, I think people are going to walk with you. Maybe the pacing, is going to be important. Maybe sometimes you need pace, but sometimes you need to slow down, right? Because change can only happen at I don't know, in the range of people's tolerance. And it's really important that tolerance is defined by the trust. And so therefore, that work of prelude is going to be extremely important before you have some proper engagement with the clients.
I think what you said at the end there is extremely valuable. People can only handle incremental changes. I think I learned this somewhere pretty recently. There's like three circles and they each overlap. We have the comfort zone. A little bit further out from that circle, we have the growth zone. And then the next circle is the danger zone. And if we
Hmm.
change too much, we enter into what's called the danger zone and we always revert back immediately to what's comfortable. So what you said right there
Yes.
is super key. One more thing I want to ask you, Sam, is working with governments, working with international corporations. I assume corporations where you can list off a couple and everyone listening to the podcast would know who they are. I assume you're a master at building trust pretty quickly with your clients. Are there any pointers or tips that you would love to give to the audience? Because I'm sure not every client you work with is the exact same.
Yeah, I think, that's a very important question. I cannot say I'm a master, but I have really invested my time. And I can say that maybe one third of my time is really spent to to build trust with people. I think in order to build trust, I see 3 or 4 factors that you might need, right? One is you need to invest your time, right? You need to invest your time. I know that we are all faced with so many constraints. If I spend time here, I won't have time for other things, right? But, if you really want to build trust, you have to invest time in people. Number two, I think sometimes you have to invest money, right? Maybe you're going to be treating them a meal, a coffee, or maybe a small token of appreciation, acknowledgement. That will, it's a resources that you have to spend, and I think you have to be a bit generous with that. I've got people who I have a great respect. I'm sure if they have all the wealth in this world with them, but they are really like generous, and that does, feeling being treated with a meal, a nice meal. That's you know you feel like really connected sometimes, right? That's one thing. I think the other one is going to be energy, right? You really need to show that when you are with them, that you are excited, right? That you are, man, I really enjoy being with you. I'm interested in developing this relationship with you. I am wanting to build trust with you. I hope that this relationship it's an energy, right? So you need to also invest in that. Maybe last, maybe it's not the most critical, but I can say knowledge. Maybe you want to share something that could be of use, beneficial to them, right? Some information that you want, maybe sharing something valuable. That's part of knowledge. And so therefore, I think all these, 3 to 4 ingredients are extremely important in building that, relationship to trust. And ultimately, I think it's very important that you will need to create that psychological safety, or you can say that it's a psychological ownership, or you can say a psychological climate. You're creating that safe space where people are really comfortable with you. And if you're not, if they don't, people are not finding comfortable with you. They're not going to share information that you perhaps, they can be a game changer. It's really important that you really create that safety, and that climate. And you will begin to see that you have more friends. And of course, not all relationship turns out to be all successful, but still, it's better that you are optimistic about building relationship. And keep on making that effort to build that trust. And so I say that I have my own formula is that sometimes I feel that you need to invest about 6 months of your time, effort, the energy with people if you really want to have some really authentic, genuine, high trust relationship with people. And that's my way of doing it. And I found that's been very useful over the years. And I strongly encourage anyone who's watching this to do so. I think your life is going to change. There's so much to that. And that's one area. If you are to really invest your time, energy, and money into it, relationship, right? That's the pathway to success.
Thank you so much for that answer, because it is what you know, but relationships, who you know, is a foundational key to success. I think you
Yes.
articulated that really, really clearly. So thank you for that, Sam. And I want to ask you, how did you manage to work with governments on leadership? I'm personally blown away by that fact. So please tell the audience, how did all that transpire?
Yeah, one of the ways, I think I had a bit of a rare experience, which is when I was in the graduate school, I started this program called the Asia Leadership Track. And, I was studying in the US, Boston. And, the professors were sharing about, the potential that Asia has. And people were talking about, what are the potentials, but what are also the downside, the challenges that the region faces. I felt that yes, it's going to be wonderful to learn all these inside the classroom, read articles, but the best experience is actually going there, right, and meeting with leading thinkers, decision makers. And so this program, I've led this during the break time, right? So it's either in the summer or in the winter. And this program is a 3 week long, sometimes 4 weeks, but every of this journey will take, about 40 of us to about 6 or 7 countries, maybe about 8 to 10 different cities. And doing this for 5 years, this has taken me to about uh, 83 cities, 32 countries in Asia, from the Northeast Asia to Southeast Asia to South to Central Asia to the Middle East, and going there and meeting with really the leaders of the country. So I was able to build that relationship with them and just talking to them. Hey, you know what? You're on a daily basis. You're faced with this challenge. What is it? Tell us. How are you solving it? What are some of the efforts that you're making? How are you collectively dealing with this? Who are your allies? What are you doing to really address some of these social issues, economic issues, but also to look at the bright side of things, right? What are the opportunities that these countries have? And so I was really able to have that firsthand experience. And doing that for 5 years, met with a lot of people. And that has then led me to the teaching work, then to the consulting work, advising work, impact assessment work. All that stuff came about with that. And I've learned from there. Of course, my first career was working at the United Nations. Was in my early 20s. I always have thought that people are important, relationship is important, trust is important. But I'm just in my walks of life, it has again proven, has reminding me that trust and relationship is so important, and this is where you need to invest time. But ultimately, that UN experience and other sort of corporate experience, the people that I've worked with, some of the bosses I didn't enjoy working with, but I still maintain a very good relationship with. But they, in the end, depending on how you define relationship, how you lead relationship with them, drive the relationship with them, they can actually be opening the doors for you. So it's going to be very, very important that every step of the way, the people that you're meeting, that's a moment, right? That's a moment. I call that leadership moment. And it's really, up to you. You have a choice. Either that
Mm.
you want to ignore things, or you want to just, let loose, or you want to invest time, again, energy and money into developing, relationship with people. So every moment, whether I'm meeting the same person again or I'm meeting a new person, I always see that as a leadership opportunity. And ultimately, that leads to opening up of a new opportunities, doors for us to engage in some important work and or make new friends through that person. And so in the areas of government, I think I do have like one-on-one casual meetings, but I also attend, events. And from there, my goal is to make, okay, let's make 5 friends, 10 friends, and the exchange of cards and following up and really, staying in touch. Then leads to multiple, like it's like a exponential sort of a thing where one person could lead to like 5 relationships. I mean, that's how I've done. And that's how I has led me to work with various governments in the region.
Sam, thank you so much for elaborating on that. You said something to me that made me smile ear to ear. Clearly, you possess what's called the growth mindset, where even
Mm,
if the person you're working with may not be the most bubbly or happiest person in the world, you still view that as an opportunity to grow. And I'm a firm believer with the right mindset, you can do anything in this world. So it's obvious you possess that. But what would you say to someone who is in that particular moment? They have a relationship, a boss they don't like, or just someone in their personal life, maybe professional as well. They're just really not getting along very well with that person. What would you say to, I guess, shine some light on the situation and just help them change their perspective? Because what you have is very important.
Yeah, I really like how you made that connection with the growth mindset. And I think, again, you have a choice in front of you. You want to go with a fixed mindset mode, or you want to go with a growth mindset. If you really, I mean, I consider life very short. Um, and you have the power to define, you know, again, as I mentioned to you, do you want to be on a growth path? Do you want to be in the stuck path? Do you want to be in a declining path? You got to ask yourself a question, because what you do right now, you will determine your future. I'm talking about on a very individual level, not a high level, just very individual level. What you do, the choices that you make will define your trajectory. And so therefore, it is very important, if you really want to have a great life, to make an effort to have this growth mindset. Maybe other people are, can be very rude. People, maybe they don't really care about relationship. Maybe they could be making your life very difficult. But I think it's really important that you make that effort. And again, that's why I told you 6 months. You have to have some level of consistency. That yes, I mean the consistency doesn't mean that you have to be always smiling all the time. You also need to give yourself a little bit of break if you're really fatigued and you're really having a tough time with relationship. You got to give yourself a little bit of break so that you're able to recover. But it's really important that the people who have this growth mindset, when you see what's common in them, people do not blame. Right? They don't blame what's around them. Um, if you talk to the fixed mindset people, the people who are having a lot of challenges themselves, right? I say that a lot of that the corporate is you sometimes. I mean, you have to like say, because the way of you looking at the world is negative, static. I mean, it's really gloomy, but there's also like a choice that you can look at the world in a bright way. And those people do not blame, they don't say that, what, because of the other people or because of this or because of that, my life sucks or my life is not great. And so it's very conditional, right? And they're very much influenced by what's happening around them. But those people who are growth mindset, I think the locus of control is within, right? I don't care what's happening around me, despite the challenges, I want to see what I can do about things, right? And it's really important to have that kind of mindset. So that when you have that, I think there's a lot of things that you can do, rather than saying that, what, it's not going to work because of all these things. I think, what, let's start with what I can. And then, maybe in joint force with other people. I mean, there's always something that you can do. It's identifying what you can do in that moment of challenge and trying to improve things. And I think another definition of leadership is making improvements. Maybe it's not an overnight thing, but it will be a gradual improvement process. And so therefore, rather than blaming things, ask yourself, okay, you know what, despite all these things, nevertheless, I mean, there are things that I think I can do. And what are these things I can do? Start with that. And that's speaking how I live my life. And, my wife tells me that you are some of the really few people that I've seen who are super optimistic. And it's really important that the drive within you. And that will really define the way that you look at the world, the people. Just that can really make a huge difference.
It does make a world of a difference. I'm a firm believer that is the foundation to anything great or successful in this life is how you view the world. I'm also a
Yes.
believer that your inner world kind of shapes your outer world. If you're always
Yeah.
pessimistic, why this, why that, negative things are going to continue to happen to you. But if you take
Yes.
Sam's approach and you're optimistic, you start seeing good things, like more good things show up in your world. So thank you
Yeah.
for that answer. I kind of want to take a pivot. You run a conference, right?
Yes.
Can you please tell us about that? I'm really intrigued.
Well, thank you. Right now there's a World Economic Forum taking place in Davos, Switzerland, and I felt that why not that we create an Asian version of that, and that's why we have it in Seoul every May. It's a 2-day conference. I mean, the World Economic Forum is taking place now is a week long, but the one that it's being held in Seoul is 2 days. But the inspiration is, of course, we get that inspiration from the World Economic Forum. But the conference that we have is quite similar in nature, but there are two other important purposes that we are pursuing. One is that we want to bring people from countries who pursue or who promote democracy, freedom of speech. Democracy is a messy process, right? Maybe it's not like top down, hey, do this, do that. It takes time because you have to hear people out. But even though it may be slower, I think there's a value because there are a lot of things, if we hear out, and again, that's the diagnostic work of leadership. It's really important that, some of the people's perspectives, their insights can really, um, you know, uh, change the course of the work that you do. And that could ultimately become like a solution, right? And so it's really important to hear out people, to really understand. But in that engagement, discussion, the debate, people become more creative. And ultimately, we are able to provide something very powerful for humanity's progress. So we want to bring in different leaders. I usually have people, about 320 speakers from about 110 different countries, to come and just hearing them out. And also sharing. We're able to learn from one another. We get new ideas. We have new opportunities. I had this idea. Maybe the person that I'm sitting next to could be a person who's looking to fund a project, or maybe two different people with two different ideas. But when they come together, it can create like another level of, whatever. Uh, so we want to create that platform, and again, bring in people, and we want to really learn from one another. That's one purpose. The other one is really that I'm really invested in young people. So about 3,500 attendees, about 1,000 are university students. And while all these, former prime ministers, corporate leaders, the ministers, secretaries, the startup people, they're all coming together. This is really an amazing opportunity because A lot of the people today who are young, they are having to deal with a lot of anxiety because of the emergence of the, artificial intelligence. There's just so much uncertainties. And by just talking to them, speaking to them, and even getting their contacts, who knows what, right? The speakers could be opening doors for them. They could have some ideas, in terms of, how their future should look like, the choices that they are need to make. And so I also wanted to invest in young people. And, we've got about 120 sessions, 5 concurrent sessions every day, tracks every day, and about 120 different topics involving 120 people. We just want that, that platform where people are able to learn, look for opportunities, and show to the world that, democracy works. Though it may not be the best form of governance, it still works, and we want to pursue this. And ultimately, we want to value people and a human-centered approach and progress. And so that's what the conference is, exists to achieve.
I'm a bit curious, from the moment you had that idea to bringing it into the universe and bringing it into actuality, how long did that process take you? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, no, it requires a great deal of planning. It's just 2 days, but there's so much time invested to plan this. So ultimately, you need a minimum 6 months to prepare, and maybe even more. But I think having the right people on the ground is important. We need to align, right? One person might have like different idea, but the communication is extremely important, and you really need to have alignment, between the team members. And that again, how well you do that as a leader, people free to share ideas, have an alignment, and you have a very important. And one word I want to use here is clarity. It's really important. You have a very clear of what your roles are, what your responsibilities are, and we have a very clear purpose, the objectives, and having that clarity. I think it's not about numbers. You can have like 10 people and still pull it off. You can have like 100 people and then have it's great deal of a challenge.
I would love to know a bit about some case studies or some previous clients that you worked with where you did come inside that organization and you either push them up to an entirely new level or you turned around the organization. Do you have any specific details of anything?
Yeah, when it comes to the government, I want to focus on emerging countries because emerging countries, they have a lot of challenges. They've got, they don't have talents. They don't have enough talents to drive, policy challenges, to address policy challenges. So therefore, my passion is in helping the emerging countries, so that they're able to have the right caliber, right? To have the capabilities to come up with the right policies and to drive them, again, for the benefit of the community. And so when it comes to government, that's, who I work with. And I've been working on a wide range of things from healthcare to infrastructure to investments, securing investments from overseas, and really trying to upgrade their policy effectiveness so that, again, there's more transparency, there's more effectiveness in that regard. And so this work has, I think, taken me to I say about 30 to 35 countries over the years. When it comes to the corporate side, I have, I'm primarily focusing on artificial intelligence, technology, semiconductors, strategic investments. And so I have these couple industries that I am working with, some of the companies I've worked with. And ultimately, again, the goal is to help them become more relevant, right? So that whatever the products, services that they come up with, that's able to reach the customers, and they're able to serve the customers with really good products. Maybe what about the internal corporate culture? That could be one of them. Compliance can be another. Governance. So we've got different projects working with different companies, and usually my engagement will involve some teaching work, but also consulting work. Each engagement will probably spend about minimum about 6 months to even like 3-4 years. And over the years, the companies that I've engaged with, we have a very long term relationship with them because they seems like they like it. The programs that we introduce, the projects that we lead, they find that that's been effective. And so when it comes to industry, yeah, tech is a very big part of it, but also strategic investment, between companies. And I also love to connect people. So maybe an entrepreneur wants to know different entrepreneur. If I know them, I connect them. That's also a joy of my life, connecting people, making connections. And so before I used to do many different types of industries, different types of companies, but now we are in the process of narrowing it down so that we are able to really build ourselves that reputation, the brand, in that few specific areas that we think that we're really good at, and we want to have more success stories. And usually the engagement will take a little bit longer, but that's completely fine. We love, again, that trust is important. And sometimes the pacing is important. If it's too rushed, there's going to be a lot of casualties. We are really serious in helping our clients to remain relevant by knowing how to adapt, and what kind of impact that they're making is something that we want to help our clients with. So yes, 50% of the work involves government, another 50 the corporates.
Out of curiosity, for anyone listening right now, are you actively taking on more corporate clients?
Yes, we're taking up more corporate clients. I mean, I hope that we're able to do a lot more. But again, who I work with is going to be very important. If they're all talking about bottom line, bottom line, bottom line, and I have this 3-month engagement, less likely. I will need to speak. And again, that chemistry, is this person that I can really confide in and consider me as someone who can confide. I think that will take some time. And then, once we kind of click and once we feel that, what, let's do it, then we'll work. But yes, definitely, we love to work with many great companies out there, many new clients out there. We would love to see them.
Understood. We're wrapping up on time here, Sam. Are there any closing notes that you would want the people to know, or anything at all that you would love to share?
Yes, I mean, I think we have a lot of challenges around us. Seriously, we have a lot of challenges, and I say that because I am working with many clients who have many different challenges, and my job is to help them know how to overcome these challenges, and while remaining relevant and impactful. But I think I heard a very interesting thing from Elon Musk. I think he was on the World Economic Forum yesterday. And he mentioned that it's more important to be an optimist and go wrong than be a pessimist than go right. I think that is a growth mindset. And I think it's important that, yeah, despite all these challenges, it's really about what kind of glasses that you wear. If you put on that glasses where, yeah, despite challenges, I'm not going to blame people around me. I'm not going to blame the circumstances that I'm in. What are some of the things that I can do right now? And who can I partner with? Who are some of the allies that I can partner with to make improvements? And if you are really happy with some of the things that you do, ultimately leading to an improvement, man, you are a leader. And I think there's a lot more things that you can do. And you know what? That kind of people, when other people see it, wow, these are the people that you want to, that they want to work with and be that person. And if you are able to do this, again, the word consistency, I'm sure that you will succeed. You will make a lot of accomplishments, a lot of achievements in life. And so therefore, on an individual level, I just want to make it very down to earth. Just be that person and see what's happening to you. You will have a lot more greater friends and more opportunities coming your way. Yeah.
Sam, you're giving the people so many gems, so many nuggets, an absolute gold mine. Thank you so much. For anyone watching, you can see me smiling ear to ear. Absolutely love what Sam had to say right there. Sam, where can the people find you?
Yeah, I mean, I am quite active in LinkedIn and also, Instagram as well. But we also have a website, asialeadership.org. And, on the website, I think anywhere it can be found. Also email. So do reach out, and I hope that I'm able to connect with more people. But, Jordan, thank you so much for this opportunity. I hope that this really benefits your crowd. And thanks for what you're doing. I think this is really an important form and exercise of leadership that you're doing. I hope that through your channel, you're able to really impact many people's lives. Thank you so much for doing this.
We currently are, and you are taking a massive part of that, Sam. So thank you. All right, everyone listening, as always, it's a pleasure to have you, and we'll go ahead and talk to you guys soon. Thanks.
Thank you.